tools. Last one at the bottom, next to last, is the sketch file maker. You can then choose that EULA 21. If you may have already done this, you may already be there. It's fine. Just if you haven't, then the hashtag SH21. If you're having trouble typing in the SH in here, you can easily go into the file itself and copy the SH21 and paste it in if you want to do that. And then it should be able to create the, is it created for you? Okay, so then just to get a sense of what we do, you can maybe stick video files by so maybe you can just go and do different manuscripts and you can practice. So maybe what's the best way to do this? You can assign which manuscript, who gets which manuscript. There's some of them are, if you have any experience, does anyone have extensive experience with Prushthamatra? So, Amruta, maybe you can do this one, Bori 386.
386.
Yeah, that one's also the closest to EULA HU1, so you'll have the least amount of typing that you have to do because it's almost exactly the same, but it has Prushthamatra. You can see it's very small print. So, but it tends to have a, actually maybe this one doesn't have much Prushthamatra. It's an occasionally Prushthamatra every now and then. So please do that one. And I can show you what I mean by it. Maybe, what's your name?
Charu.
Name behind Charu.
No, Darshi.
Darshi. Yeah. Darshi, maybe you can, would you like to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Type in Bori 470.
Okay.
That's one of, it's a bit messy, but it's not bad. It's a good manuscript. A very close neighbor of Bori 470 is, so maybe Charu, that you can do that one and you can help each other, is ASM 1273. That one is almost exactly the same. In fact, we've been able to determine that it's what's called an allograph. It's a copy of Bori 470, a direct copy of that. That one. Bori 578. Maybe Samhita. So you can do that if you don't mind. Very closely related to Bori 578 is LD 328. So maybe if you don't mind, yeah, and then again, you can work with each other to read something if there's a difficulty. You can see the same text sitting next to it. Then the next manuscript, let's see which one is. There's Bori 154, which is a bit messy. Is there anyone who's a novice, who's never, have you done much before? Right? Maybe then we can give you a cleaner one, which is IO course. This one is harder to read. EULA D. Now, what's your name? Vijay. So if you don't mind, there's a EULA D. You can do that one. That one's written. It's a very recent manuscript, so it's the structure is. Yeah, EULA D 21. These are all just the 21. Then closely related to that one, maybe you can do Prashant. Yeah, you can do this Y. Maybe Y9055. And the bottom. WAI 9055.
Sorry, I think it is not clear what do you want us to do.
Okay, I'll tell you in a second. When we finish assigning, then we can do you would like to do if you can read manuscripts, then. If not, then maybe you can work with Prashant as a group. Yeah, if anyone's uncomfortable reading manuscripts, you can work with someone who can read a manuscript. That's no problem. You'd like to do a manuscript? Okay, manuscripts. Then there's Y9054. It's a bit messy if you're having trouble with that one. Because it's got some ink splotches and so on. I can help you also with that. It's a good problem to have. Would you like to switch? Why don't you guys do 9054? You can do 9055. Yeah. They're very similar to each other. Copies of probably in common answer. This one's a cleaner manuscript. This is more straightforward. Well, would you like to do? You would like to do a manuscript? I'll give you this one from Trivandrum. OMLT. It's a Devanagari manuscript. Yeah.
OMLT 20S21. Okay. Yeah.
This one is. Yeah, you'll see there's a 20. Yeah. Then, if you like to do the, there's this Rory. This one's, see if you can read that one. Maybe you can work together. Okay, sure. Your names are Mahesh and Pranali. So maybe you can work on this Rory 2612. Then there's Jagdish, maybe I0496, I0496, 4096. Just as soon as I finish the assignment. Rory, so the Rory is there, and then I0496, Jagdish. You can work together. Or do you want a separate one? Okay, there's SVPK. This one is very difficult. This is from a microphone. You can try it. SVPK 2701. And then I think there's some coding. There's SP. Not the PDFs. PDFs. PDFs मध्ये जावा सगळ्यांनी तिथे सगळे एकत्र आहे. Maybe try that. Maybe you should try that. SPK. What's the manuscript? नाही पण म्हणजे ह्याला सवय लागते मायक्रोफिल्म वरून कन्वर्ट खाली but it's a short text. Puri 154. Maybe you can work with it. I think that's the last one. आणखीन राहिले SPL Oh, these are all तीच गोष्ट आहे. It's the same story. Yeah. It's 21. It's the same. So they're identical. Maybe you can switch. SBL. You should take आणि तू SBL करायचे काय असेल एकच आहे SBL 40719. Not a new file. You have the XML file for this. Open that. Okay, so everyone has got their PDF? Yes? Now, please open the corresponding XML file, right, for the same PDF, right, for the same manuscript. And so if you have your Scratch file, you can take everything after this XML. So don't take this first tag, right? But everything starting with div type story in the Scratch file, you can take and copy like this, and then you can go into the appropriate Scratch file that you're, or sorry, the XML file. So I'll go into this other XML file. And so you'll see some blank folios that I've already made for you. If you go underneath that, right, give some space and then paste it in, like such. And so then what I do, this is how I work every day, is I'll keep the manuscript underneath, like so, so that I can read it. And then I have the text up here. And so the objective is to basically put these things into the right slot in the lines. And then if it's a different reading, you change the readings. You type in, make the corrections. So so the first thing you should do, after you've dumped this in, you can find exactly where your you can find where the story starts, and then I'll come back to you. Hello? Open the document for the XML, for the
given manuscript.
So if you go into the e-texts folder, right, where we find HU1, you can search for the other one, for your file. The TNET folders. So, yeah, it may not be in the name. Oh, yeah, make the Scratch file from the HU1. Yeah, you should make the Scratch file from the HU1. Yeah, that's the only one. All the other ones
अरे नहीं एक डॉक्यूमेंट आता है तीच टाकायची ओके कॉपी पेस्ट करायची एम्प्टी डॉक्युमेंट एक्झॅक्टली तीच करायची तीच घ्यायची तीच घ्यायची न्यू फाईलमध्ये म्हणजे आपल्याला हे काही असेल PDF तर तेच घ्यायचं ओके द एंटायर
स्क्रॅच फाईल
फ्रॉम नमश्चंद्र ठीक आहे नमश्चंद्र
टॅक्स
आता त्यांनी सांगितलं होतं खरं सुरुवातीला पण आपण विसरलो ती प्रोसिजर की अशीची अशी कॉपी पेस्ट करून मग त्यात बदल
अच्छा हो
असं दिसतं ती त्या आपण याच्यामध्ये सबलाईन सबलाईन मध्ये करायचं की नाही No, where is it? Okay, where is your
Go there. Okay.
टेस्ट करायचं
Huh? Okay, so first, okay, हे उघडा XML फाईल जी आहे तुमच्या याच्या कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग नाही उद्याची नाही तुमची आता तुमची फाईल ती त्या जे काय हे वापरता ना
Sublime text.
हां सबलाईम मध्ये उघडा आणि ती ब्लँक दिसेल म्हणजे काही हे आहेत त्याला
त्यात कंटेंट
हां लाईनचे टॅग्स घातले पण कंटेंट नाही
ब्लँक दिसतं ते बरोबर ब्लँक दिसेल ते बरोबर
हां लाईन म्हणजे हे असेल हेडर्स वगैरे असतील सगळे लाईन नंबर
माझ्या मॅन्युस्क्रिप्टची एक्झॅक्ट फाईल
काय कुठला
मोरी फाईल सो इथे टाईप करायचं लाईन बाय लाईन
राईट म्हणजे ट्रान्सफर करायचं सो स्क्रॅच फाईलमधून सगळंच कॉपी पेस्ट करता येईल
सगळंच
हां आणि
मग त्यात बदल करायचं
राईट मी असं करतो की सो कट पेस्ट कर कॉपी कर आणि ह्याच्यात जा या जस्ट विदाउट दिस कॉपी केलं तिथे खाली किंवा इथेच राईट इथेच कर पेस्ट राईट सगळी गोष्ट येते and then you can go up आणि line by line जसं ते येत असेल in the manuscript cut paste okay yes so you have because you're going to base your text on this just needs to, you don't have to type in all the things. It's a scratch. So just put it the scratch file. Okay. Now you look at the manuscript. तसंच असतं यश नसेल ते एक बोलिओ झाला की हे सगळं पुढे वर
हे काय केलेलं बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे ही वाली
make changes as per so that you need not Tamas Chandra.
Everyone should be attached. Well, you're working on the same. So maybe just work on the same. Oh, okay. Sorry. You're working together with.
No, this is not the software.
No, because the link but the means is that is the link.
No, the atom editor is yeah, it is Sublime Video. You have to just Google it and then download it.
It's the same, no?
No, this is not the one. Google will because the editor atom was not just
Okay. You give me so many links.
there was another link that was specified earlier. That is Sublime Video.
And the other link?
He is going to specify it.
Yes, but only now this one. Only this now.
Sublime Reader.
स्केच फाईल जी आहे तिथे इंग्लिश
मला काहीतरी करायचं
तुमचे व्हेरिएशन
करून नाही झालं म्हणजे मला कॉपी पेस्ट करून झालं नाही मी त्याला टायटल सांगतो त्याचं डिस्कशन चालू होतं माझं सुरुवातच नाही डायरेक्ट तमश्चंद्रापासून सुरू होतं तिथूनच सुरू करायचं तमश्चंद्रापासून
सगळ्यात कसं
माझ्याकडे वेगळंच करते
PDF वेगळी दिसते ना
ती पहिल्यापासून करायची
Copy it into your file. You should file it as
माहिती असते माझ्याकडे पण ते करायचं
Go back to subline. Yeah, just do the. Yeah, that's cool. So go back to subline. You're just there. Just at the subline.
त्याच्या आधीचे सगळे ब्लँक टाकेल बरोबर हो
जे आहे तसं फक्त आपल्याला रीड करायचं
माझ्याकडे एक पान आहे आणि
Okay. The example already should exist.
आधी कोणतं दिलं होतं SPL
So the XML file already exists. Yeah, so that one already exists. The headers are already there. The empty folios in there. So you can, that's why what I do is take the scratch file and dump it into the line here and then just start configuring. Krishna?
ती जी कथा ती इथून सुरू होते हां तर मग आता हीच लाईन एक पकडायची
नाही सगळंच पकडा ना तिथेच ते मॅनिप्युलेट करता येते टू द XML फाईल
मग वरची पण
वरचं सोडून द्या ते तरी
आणि मग तिसरी
वरचं मी टाईप करेन नंतर
मग यातली ही
मी
तिसरी
आता जस्ट 21 साठीच वेगळी फाईल केली ॲक्च्युली फुल मॅन्युस्क्रिप्ट फाईल आहे वेगळी ज्याच्यात सगळे 1 to 20 आहेत
पण मग ही तिसरी ओळ इथून सुरू करतो
तिसऱ्या 3 आधीचं सोडून द्यायचं काहीच नाही तर ते घेतलं
ठीक आहे
Might be this question. The line I see starts on like line 5.
Yeah, start on line 5.
And instead of the number, what about
Put that in. Yeah, put that in. Yeah, take out the verse div. Right. Because you don't, it's not a verse, it's just, we don't have a verse. So just start with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you're at a little stage now where you have your XML file that you're going to populate, right? You have a scratch file that you're going to take material, you've dumped it into the XML file. What I like to do is, I'll show you, is to keep, so I dump in the entire story and then I dump it in below the folio that I want to type in. And so I have the divs and so on. So let's actually, in fact, take someone's manuscript. Whose manuscript shall we take? Bori 386 is almost exactly the same. Let's take a southern one, which will be quite different. So 9054 is a good one. You'll find that the reading is quite different. In fact, it may be that you delete everything as you go along and just type it in. So here the first thing you'll do is to find where your manuscript starts, the story starts, right? So 21 is the story, it starts after 20, right? So find 20, that's the end of the 20th. So you'll see it starts here, and then you have to count which line is it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it'll start on the 12th line, and there's 14 lines altogether. So this is a different manuscript, but let me just type it in there for now. This one actually only has 8. So I'm just making it temporary. This is a different manuscript that I'm putting it into. But it's oh yeah. This one. Yeah. So I'll put it in. Actually, what you'll notice is that maybe there's one too many lines already, right? I think there's 15 in the template, so you can delete that. Then you want to keep everybody. So you identify where you're going to start. So we're going to start at line 12. No matter what, keep this div, opening div. Right? Because the story div has to be there. So don't delete the first story div. You may need to change the name of the city and the name of the king, because it may be different in your version. But keep everything else. Right? It's a story, it's S21, keep that. Don't change anything else. And you can take that, cut it, and put it in this line 12. Right? That's now the start of your manuscript. And you can all maybe do that now. So start where your manuscript starts. Don't worry that there'll be other text. We'll put it in afterwards for the story 20. Yeah. Just start with story 21. So none of you will have these Roman numeral XXI, right? Because that was in this Ula edition. So you can delete that. Right? That will not be there for any of you. This one now, does it start with the same verse? Namas Chandra and so on? No, it starts with what? Namastubhyam Shirascha and so on. It's a different verse. Right? There's a different kind of protocol for this. We have a list of verses that we've already created based on Sternbach. You don't have to do this for now. You can keep I'll go through and change the ID numbers to the appropriate ones, but this one will have its own ID number. So which story is this? 21. So these are all of the verses that are found in story 21, along with all of the various sources that Sternbach had identified. So we put in all of the bibliographical citations for all of the sources. So you can see this verse 21:6, the sixth one, Satyam, Shaucham, Shamam, Shilam, and so on, is found in all of these different sources. Anyway, so if you're, at the moment, if you, what you would have to do is actually change the number of the verse. Maybe for now, the best thing to do is if you find that the verse is different than the one that's given there, change the ID number to that number 0.2. So later I'll just go and search for the 0.2 and change it to the appropriate ID number. Does that make sense? So here I'll just show you what I'm doing, what I mean in this manuscript. So this verse is actually not Namas Chandra and so on and so on. Right? It's some other verse. So I'm just going to change this ID number to 1.2. Right, 21-1.2. Right, just add a 0.2, and then you can change the text because it's actually a totally different text, right? It's whatever it is. It starts with, here's the text. Is it Namastubhyam? Right. Namas space Tubhyam. So in the way that we're doing this transliteration, whenever you can break sandhi in the Roman, you have to put a space in. Right? So in Roman you can write Namas space Tubhyam. In Devanagari of course you can. So, but in Roman you can't, so you put Namas space Tubhyam Shiras Chandram. Now, but the one thing in this manuscript is that it goes Shiras, Cha, right? And then there's a new line, right? Actually, there's a jump, right? There's an anuswara. The one thing that I would also caution you is when you're typing in the manuscripts, the scribes all use anuswaras instead of the appropriate varga nasal. Yeah. So, but we're going to type in the anuswara.
Yeah.
So be careful that the Ula edition had changed those to the appropriate nasal. So like Chandra, he writes with a na and not with the anuswara. So we have to change it. Those of you who are working with the scratch file, when you see those anuswaras, you have to be vigilant that you change it to the. So here, now this is now the end of the line, right? It's down here if you can see. But you can also maybe right now open up YE90 for everyone else so you can follow along. But you would put since it's a new line, you add you can break the line and you add another hyphen. So this is the other thing we do in our typesetting, which is different than others, which is we'll put a hyphen when you're creating a break in a word. You put a hyphen on the first part and also the second part. That way, it's easier to read it. So you have double hyphen, jam hyphen line, then dra, drum, then space, right? Shatra, Chamara, Charave. Is it right?
Yeah.
Show and Kali. You can also open actually if you want to open the file on your own laptop. That's easier. Which one is not cha? This is a cha, yeah. This is also cha. Yeah, let's look at how he makes his words. Here, I can pull it. Right, so chamara, charave. It takes some time to get used to the handwriting. Okay, so then what you would do is you would pull all of this, so this is all in this same 12th line, right? So you put that in the 12th line, and then you put the next part in the 13th line, like so. And you can move the div tag at the end. And then what happens? Then you have the rest of, actually there's more of the rest. Vailokya. You put in the one with the double letters on the other side. Then that's the end of the div. Now again, it doesn't start with asti, right? So in fact, the southern manuscripts, this Mula scratch file will be less useful. So you have Punar Vetalam Adaya.
One second. So there is no need actually to record even that ink
Yeah, I tend not to record that. You can. You can say that it was an ad or it was unclear, but it's not unclear.
It's a feature.
Yeah.
It's a feature of the manuscript, that's all.
Yeah, it just looks like his ink is a bit runny. He already has ink problems. Huh? He's been having some ink issues here, so that's just he's frustrated. It's not coming in.
Leakage, seepage.
So maybe you can get started and I'll come around and answer to make sure you're doing it properly. Yeah, so you have to get the scratch pad first. No, you have to go to this because you made the scratch pad, so you can take that. No, you have to set it. Not the wrong stuff. It's sort of not this one, then what if now you're just going I like to do this. Jump. How are we starting? To find yeah, so the first thing you have to see, that's right. So the first thing you would see is to figure out if this verse looks like it's listed. Instead of that, have this verse. Instead of point one, give it way less. Text just. Yes. Text. So. Copy paste tag. This is what you're working on. This is what you want to do. So the arrow is not here. What is exactly तो काटता है वर दिसताना XX आहे ते काटता अस्ति जरा विजयवर जयस्थानं एवढंच बदला
I have to change this, okay? Yes.
So you have to just change that name.
Copy this correct.
Yeah. What were they going to copy paste?
Download झालं तर बरंच आहे. नसेल तर मी त्याची
You have to aim actually.
मला 8 मार्क्स हे करायला लागले कारण इथे जे वर्ड्स होते केलेले ते इथे दिसत नाही म्हणजे विंडोज टाइप करत जायचं नाही दुसऱ्या पद्धतीने दिसते त्याने का ते
स्क्रॅच फाईल सोपी असते कारण ऑलरेडी केलेलंच असतं
इंस्टॉल
हिंदी
we start with Java? Any question if we start with? Yes,
ह्याच्यात अंडू नसतं कसं आहे हा माहिती आहे तसंच चाललंय ठीक आहे सर
हां तिथे लिहिलं कुठेतरी श असतो तो स्थ असतो
ठीक परदार लंपट पण नंतर स्पेस
हां ती असू दे ते असं छोट्या स्पेसेसमध्ये काही फरक नाही
पण इथे असं
हां इथे मग ते गॅप आहे तसं पण लिहिता येईल ते ॲक्च्युली बहुतेक काय आहे की हा गॅप आहे म्हणजे 3 अक्षरं त्यांनी काढले गॅप क्वांटिटी मेथड आहे हीच वापरायची फक्त स्पेसच्या जी गॅप आहे
पण म्हणजे लिहिताना मी कसं
गॅप क्वांटिटी गॅप क्वांटिटी
Okay. No problem. Just erase everything. Research.
Which layer?
Oh, because usually it's option H.
Is it?
Maybe I'll
Try left option.
No. Maybe I'll I'll download the one.
You don't need to download actually. You can use Mac, you can use US extension or ABC extension. For that one, the dot below the is Alt X.
Oh wait, this one. Ah, there you go.
So there, all the dot belows are Alt and X. So if you press Alt X, this option, press Option X, then left option. You have to switch to the X.
Okay.
Press the letter you want to X after, or the dot. H after that. Sorry. First the dot Alt X.
Yeah.
Space, or just let it go.
Okay. Okay, I'll look it up.
There you go.
Okay.
You have to switch to this I thought it was key Alt X hits up. So actually
ऑपरेट नहीं होते
So double down before you do. Okay, perfect.
No, perhaps Nisarga,
Oh, okay, okay. And then it So
Because it's part of the text, it's not a condition.
I just read it.
आपण समजू शकलो नाही
I don't say it's an addition.
It's in the margin and so on.
It just happens to it's over.
So it does not.
नाही
This raw after margin, this matra after margin, it becomes
And it's not a later addition. It just doesn't follow the margin.
yeah, because they will place
In
space.
the header, you can say
Overrides the margin.
because it's only a feature, not text. It doesn't impact.
And now there are these pros and this is, so instead of feeding those, type words, we say pros now.
Yeah.
So is this okay? Does this look like, does this look okay to you? So we have repeated type is equal to pros, ID is equal to everything. What do you
No,
want?
no, there's no type case.
There's no type.
Yeah, it's just there's no, the only div container is either story or verse.
Verse. So this should be story.
There's no divs there.
There's no divs there at all.
Yeah, divs are around the entire story or divs.
So I should delete divs, div and slash divs.
Yeah. Don't delete that slash.
No, that was closest. Yeah.
But all the other, yeah, the No, that's for the
पण thesis राहायचं जिथे एक शब्द संपतो पुत्र
म्हणजे ज्याला अभ्यास करायचा
yeah, no,
त्यांनी आत्ता सांगितलेलं छत्रम दोन्हीकडे आहे दोन्हीकडे आहे संधी मग ते अशीच लिहायची की आरोग्य नाही
डायटेटिकच काम त्याचं
तू तसंच म्हणत होतेस का
दोन वेगळे डायटेटिक
नाही डॉट्स नाही तसं दिसतंय
आणि आपल्याला पॉसिबल जिथे शब्द एक सलग शब्द समजले म्हटलं असा शब्द मग तो आपण वेगळं करू शकतो
जे आहे ना ते वर्डमध्ये टाईप करतो आणि ते कॉपी करतो